When I ask people why they chose mediation, which is the first question I ask them when we start our session, and they'll say most of the time they want to continue their positive co-parenting relationship. They don't want to. They want to keep. They'll say, "Well, we want to be friends, or we still are family," whatever their words are. And I often say, "You're parents forever and grandparents forever." I'm a grandparent already, and my ex-husband and I are great grandparents. And that child has a lot of. We're a big unit, and he has a lot of grandmas and a grandpa. So that's all positive. And if I think the self-selection of mediation, people are choosing that process deliberately to do what's best.
Hi, I'm Rachel Green, Brooklyn-based divorce mediator and collaborative attorney, and this is my podcast, Keep the Kids in Mind. Join me as I chat with other industry professionals about everything from smoothly navigating your way through divorce to prenups, all the while keeping the kids in mind. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the podcast, Keep the Kids in Mind. I'm Rachel Green, a mediator, collaborative attorney, and parenting coordinator. What do I do again? And I'm very happy this morning that Catherine Canadé has agreed to join us to talk about these subjects and how people can keep their kids in mind. So welcome, Catherine.
Good morning, Rachel.
So just to start, I'm wondering if there's anything that you would be willing to share about how you found your way into this work of working with families who are in transition.
Absolutely. Sure. Happy to share. So I'm a collaborative attorney and mediator, and I'm working right now. I'm seeing clients from Brooklyn, Manhattan, out to the North Fork of Long Island in Suffolk County. And the way I found myself to this career was I was living in California in 2006, and I was going to go through a divorce. And I brought it up to my spouse. What about the collaborative process? I had read about it online. I was not a collaboratively trained attorney. I was an international trademark portfolio manager.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow. So you already were an attorney.
I was an attorney.
Yeah.
I was an attorney, but not in that field. I was doing family law pro bono on the side.
Just because you were interested in it?
Well, I was living in Singapore and I was living in London before I moved to California. And when I was doing the international portfolio management there in two different local law firms, I was helping with family law work for, girls at risk of trafficking in Thailand, being trafficked in Thailand.
Wow.
Different groups in Vietnam. I worked in a lot of pro bono groups in Vietnam. I adopted my two children from Vietnam. So I was kind of doing that because it was my vocation kind of and then I love though the trademark work. I loved it. So I had two things I loved, but one was kind of my real job, money job, whatever.
Right.
And then the other was the thing that I just loved, helping people, helping children. I ran an adoption support group for many years in Singapore. So I really loved that part of it. And so I moved to California, was raising my young family. At that point, I had two young girls from Vietnam, and I had given birth to my son. I had 3 under 3.
Oh my God.
So it was wonderful.
I had no idea about any of this. This is so fascinating.
I don't really share them. So thank you for
now you're sharing on this huge platform.
I know.
Millions of people will listen now.
It's you, Rachel. You bring out people's instinct to share. It's wonderful. Yeah. So anyway, he agreed, and we went to the collaborative attorneys. We did not have a full team. We had a financial, but we did not have a family specialist.
And by full team, you mean? We do collaborative cases with a full team, which means you have the two attorneys representing the spouses, and then or the partners, and then you have sometimes a child specialist, sometimes divorce coach, mental health professionals, and then also a financial neutral professional, right?
Exactly.
So you're saying you just had the two attorneys working with you with a pledge not to go to court.
Yes, right. It was it we yes. So, but there was no family specialist, so there was no one to, be in charge of, helping us with the parenting plan. So I wrote my own parenting plan. So I
Yeah.
wrote
Wow.
the plan, they attached it to the agreement, and so that was my little first step, not only being exposed to the collaborative process as a client, but then actually and became part of the team in a weird way by doing the parenting plan, um,
Ah,
on my own.
right. And was it a good what was the experience like working in a collaborative process?
I think, the 2 attorneys were very friendly, and I think overly friendly. I did actually feel that my attorney was not enough of an advocate for me.
Oh,
Yeah, it was interesting. They were such good friends that I feel like my attorney was saying, "Just take this deal, let's get it done." Um,
oh,
just a lot of yeah, it wasn't great. It
oh,
wasn't
that's too bad.
good yeah, I thought I would have liked to have mediated, but it wasn't, I wasn't a mediator then, of course. I would have liked to have mediated, but I didn't think my spouse could do that. It wouldn't be the right process, for him. So that's why we chose collaborative instead.
And and how did it all work out long term? Like, were there things that didn't that were put into your settlement that didn't work? Or
Um, I think I think that, we talk about price of freedom. We use that term, and
yeah.
people make many people make compromises, certain compromises, in order to leave the marriage and maybe make the next steps for their future. And my mother was very sick with cancer, had had a heart attack as well, and I felt I had to move to New York to take care of her longer term. My two brothers were very busy, and they were helping the best they could, but they needed me there. So we had to talk about relocation, which is often a big topic for our own clients and can be very challenging. And so it was also for my family, very hard decision to have to move the whole family to New York, but I
Your
was
ex in your divorce, your ex consented to you moving with the 3 children
presented
to New
with a
York.
price. Yes,
Right.
that was the price, financial
Yes.
price.
Right.
And so, because I'm a licensed attorney in New York, not in California. So if I wanted to earn a living after the divorce, I had to be in state, or I'd have 3 young children, and had to take the bar. So and it
Right.
was a personal decision, very challenging decision, but we
Very
did.
challenging.
Yeah. So I understand when I see my clients, I feel like I understand some of the issues that they are facing because I faced it myself because
Yeah.
and it took 3 years. My divorce took 3 years. So
Really?
yes.
Wow.
Yeah. It was
So
hard.
then you didn't have 3 you had 3 under 6, not 3 under
Yes.
6.
Yeah. Yes, I don't remember the math, but, something along those lines. Yeah, that might be under 8 or 9 or something.
So then when you came to New York, did you just say, "This is it, like, I have to help people have this kind of process, but better than mine, and I'm gonna do this work now?"
Well, I really didn't like, I decided I wanted to do family law primarily. I'm not gonna do my trademark work anymore. I didn't like litigation. I did some, work in litigation early in my career. I really didn't like it. And so I did my mediation training in, 2010, and I did my collaborative training in 2011, and I opened my own practice in 2012.
Yeah.
And then my mom passed away.
Oh,
In the process, she passed away.
yeah.
I was happy I had been there for her.
Yeah, that's nice, that's
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Um, it's funny you're saying you didn't like litigation because I hated litigation. Like, I remember I was on a case where, there were 2 big corporations fighting over, there was a $999 million deal, and they were fighting over a cleanup of a settling pond, yeah, of hazardous wastes on the property that was being purchased, and it would cost 1.6 million. And the partner in charge of the case called me in and gleefully told me that our client had already spent $800,000 on
Wow,
legal fees, and he said the other side probably spent the same, and they were about to work on an appeal to the Fifth Circuit, and so they were going to spend a lot more money, and he thought that was so funny. Like,
wow.
if on day one they had just said, "Let's split it in half," they would have been better off. And I was just mystified as to why somebody would want to spend years of their lives just fighting for corporations to waste money. The whole thing just seemed insane to me, to be so like locked into conflict. And I noticed that like other colleagues I worked with like thought it was fun to fight and come up with arguments in the brief. And it just gave me a stomach ache. So I've never felt like the price of maintaining the conflict was worth it.
Absolutely, absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's the wrong thing, especially in a family situation, a family setting. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, how has it all worked out long term, like your relationship with your ex and your children and
It worked out very, very well, actually.
yeah.
It was a hard process, and it took a lot of years, more than 10 years now it's been, and, we get along great. The family's bi-coastal, so my children spend time in San Francisco and New York. Their father lives in San Francisco with his partner. I live here, with my wife, and, they have kind of the best of both worlds, and, we go on vacation together, we have holidays together.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're
And
blended.
both you and your ex have new partners and you
Yes,
all go
yes, yes, new family.
on oh my gosh, that's so wonderful.
Yes, and, yeah, recently we went to Virginia to see, my, ex-husband's mom who's not well, and we were all standing together, and someone said, "Who are you all?" to each other, and they looked at me and said, "Wife?" And I said, "Ex-wife." And then there was, like, a silence, and then, the other one of the older gentlemen said, "Family. That's what you are." And I was
That's
like,
beautiful.
that's it, right, you got
That
it."
is beautiful.
Yeah, it was nice, and the children are all there and being a part of it, and the spouses, yeah, they didn't come with us, but, we were acknowledging them by saying ex-wife,
Right.
I'm very respectful of the other relationships at all times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice. So how did you how did you work that out? There must have been some rocky points along the road, to accept new partners and I mean, maybe you were keeping the children in mind. Maybe that was your that was your guide.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think, even now, we do check in with the children. The children are in their 20s, and, all 3 of them now. And even with vacations, we went on a very big trip to Vietnam to meet my daughter's birth family. I mean, it
Oh,
was a very
wow.
big, extensive trip, and we all went together. We had always said, even when we got divorced, if anyone, either side, wanted to go to Vietnam with the child, we would all go. So we all went, partner, wives, everybody, one big, family, and went there. And afterward, we asked the children, like, how was it for you? Instead of us saying, "Isn't this great?" And they were like, um, not again. We don't want to do this again." It was a lot. It was long, and it took a lot of time. So they're better with like us all because it's for parents. That's
Right.
what they say. They're like, "That's a lot of parents on us." Like, they're like, smaller doses. So now it's more like 4-day weekend, holiday, Christmas at one person's house or the other. My son was very sick for a period of time. My, ex-husband and his partner lived with us, moved in with us, with me and my wife, and we all cared for him.
Wow.
He was in the hospital. When he came home, we all changed his PICC line. We all pitched in around the clock to care for him, all 4 of
So
us in
and that
rotation.
must have been so helpful having extra hands to help with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
One
that
one
um,
person's cooking, one person's doing the laundry, one person's on the phone with the nurse who's calling the doctor. Yeah. That was a very intense
that's
period.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really. Yeah, so I think, when I see clients and, sometimes when the new partners are in the mix and it's causing a lot of conflict, I do try to, encourage and speak up for the children. I'm a child inclusive mediator. I always say that I'm gonna be neutral, but stand up for them. No bias, for
Right,
toward.
between the parents.
Yes, not between the parents, but I speak up for them,
Right.
and I'll
Yeah.
also, how's that going for them? Because
Yeah.
get that in there,
Yeah.
especially with a new partner, it can lead to a lot of, resentment, jealousy, fear of being replaced, and, I understand that.
So, Catherine, I'm working with a family now where the father has a new partner, and that's kind of the impetus for them separating. And I think those are sometimes, the most challenging, emotionally challenging circumstances for a couple to separate when someone has found a new person. Um, and they have one son who's a young teenager, and he's so angry at his father. And he told the mother he never wants to meet the new girlfriend. Uh, um, and we spoke. I'm the mediator, and I spoke to the parents, and we talked about waiting, at least 6 months before he even broaches the subject with the child of introducing a new partner. And he's very eager to bring this new woman into the mix. And I'm just wondering, what your thoughts are, like how we would guide these parents to keep their son in mind while they're
Yeah.
navigating this.
Yeah. So it sounds like, did the child already meet her? Because he said he doesn't want, or he just heard of her. I mean, he said, I don't want to meet her because he's heard that dad has a new girlfriend. Is that
Right, he's heard of her, and I'm sure he's very aware of how his mother is. She's completely blindsided and in shock and grieving,
yeah.
and I'm sure he's very protective of her,
Yes.
and right.
And is mom saying anything bad about the girlfriend to the child? And that sometimes people can't help themselves and they say things that they shouldn't, we don't want to put the child in the middle of choosing.
Right.
So sometimes there's that, like, or they hear one side of conversations on the phone. They hear angry conversations, even one sided things. I think people aren't aware how much children. He's not a baby, and he's hearing and seeing everything. And even if he's seeing moms crying on the sofa, or things like that, that's going to be hard. It's hard when you're going through so much yourself to protect the child and be able to keep the kids in mind. I think
Right.
this
Right.
scenario, if you're saying she's blindsided, she's shocked, she's overwhelmed, she's devastated, then how
Yeah.
do you have the presence of mind to keep the children in mind? So I think we can do our part as professionals, but I do think mental health support is, critical. And I don't know if you've asked her if she has someone supporting her. I always do, and I always offer to provide. But usually,
Referrals.
well, yes, usually they already have someone or they're thinking of it, whereas, probably dad doesn't, mom he's probably good. And, unfortunately, that's really not great because I think having a family therapy sometimes I've asked, "Have you had a family therapy session?"
So, this family does have a family therapist, and then you were mentioning child-centered mediation,
Mhm.
um, and I mean, the important thing, I guess, is for him to have someone to talk to who he feels is neutral, so that he doesn't have to take care of mom with what he says. He doesn't have to take care of dad with what he says. Um, but I also offered to meet with him.
Oh,
He's old enough that I mean, I could do it on Zoom or he could come in.
hmm,
Um,
I've never done.
and yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, I think that it's important for dad to get, the advice of a child specialist to say, you need to wait. Like, so, as a mediator, we can't tell people what to do, but sometimes we can say, in our experience, we've seen this would be helpful. Like, that's how I don't really ever, say you must, but try to make people aware what's best for the child, but always saying, but child development special, someone who knows at 14, what does this child need versus at 6 or at 17. And so I think dad hearing it from someone else, to say it's not good for him. You're rushing it. You're forcing it.
yeah. I mean, also, my cousin had a divorce where there was those circumstances, and the children met this other woman, and to this day they still blame her
Wow.
for the divorce, and they don't have a good relationship with their stepmother, even though she's been their stepmother for more than 15 years at this point.
Mhm.
So I said that to the father, I just said,
Okay.
look, if you do think this is a long-term relationship and you want your child to have a good relationship eventually with this person, the longer you wait now,
Right.
yeah, the more
Yeah.
benefit.
Building the
Mm.
foundation, yeah, I think, I've had a situation I had a case where there was such hostility toward the new partner because the mom saw the new partner as, encouraging dad to move upstate, which would disrupt the parenting plan, and they had had a good co-parenting relationship for a long time. They had an extremely special needs son. He wasn't verbal. He wasn't even verbal. So they really had to be careful. Mom was very, very protective of him and didn't wanna disrupt his routine, and having to drive 2 hours upstate to see dad, was going to be very disruptive. And so we had a mediation. We talked about it. I said, "What about bringing the new partner in to talk about together the needs of your son, your fears and concerns? What about that idea?" And dad said, "Absolutely not. I won't have her join us because I don't want her exposed to hostility because the mom was so hostile." So we did talk a lot about a communication plan, guidelines around communication, and the mom did apologize because she used to send 10, 12 texts a day with cursing, just vitriol. She just had to vent to him all day while he was at work. So
Eh,
she did agree to stop that with guidelines and respect and her apology. All of those things were discussed in the mediation, and they did come out successful. They after
yeah,
2 sessions, they,
mhm,
agreed on the plan and how to talk further about the move, and seeing that maybe upstate and being in the outdoors, the son loved nature, and the dad said, "There's a really great services program nearby for him. What about we all move upstate?" And the mom was thinking maybe that she'd do that so that they'd all be close in an environment that would be really helpful for him to get out of.
yeah.
Yeah. So they did.
Wow, what an amazing story
Yeah. It
that they
was.
all they all yeah. Yeah, I've had a number of, families, like, who are separating, but the parents agree both to relocate to another city. It's kind of amazing when they when they do that, I mean, going back to, like, that person saying, "What are your relationships?" And then, like, stopping you and saying, "Family, your family." That's
Yeah,
it.
that's it. That's it, right.
Yeah, families really look different now than
Yes.
they did in our parents' time.
Yeah, yeah, I think people decide not to, stay in their marriages now if they're really unhappy. Uh,
Yeah,
they still wanna keep a family structure, and the children certainly want that, and
right.
yeah, but it's
Right, because, those 2 parents are always gonna be their 2 parents,
I have to I
or
have
those 3 parents, or however many.
Or yeah, it's my children, yeah, have, 3 mothers. Mother's Day, they're like, "Oh, come over, all the moms." We always out-mom everyone else. We always at school events, they're like, "Who goes with whom?" They always,
Right.
because my, ex-husband's partner is Asian, so she looks like my children,
Oh,
and I don't look like them, but my
right,
biological son is Caucasian, so it keeps people guessing and
right, I guess it keeps people guessing.
yeah.
So are there other things that you can think of that you've seen families do really well or not so well in the scope of your practice?
I think not seeing that, this can be a bonus relationship, an extra wonderful relationship, that is not doing things so well. Like that perspective, you have to put children in mind to say, if this is a person going to be in their life, it's better to have, if not, warm. You don't have to have everything together, but cordial, respectful in front of the children toward that new partner. So I think that is not done well often, and in parenting plans, when we're talking about it, they want to block the new partner from coming to events, and they don't want them sitting at a recital with the new partner, and all of those things. And I think that's short-sighted. So sometimes you can say maybe for the first whatever transition, but thereafter you're going to have to um, accept, and maybe more than accept, but actually say, wow, this could be good for them. This is a really good person. This is an interesting person. How could it be wrong to have more people love your child?
Mhm. So looking at it from the child's perspective, it really is another person who loves the child
Yes.
and who could be, a sounding board with a different perspective when a child is having a problem and looking at it that way.
Yep.
In Sweden, the word for step parent is bonus parent.
Yes, 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 I love that, and I think that is hard to accomplish and not always possible in every family, but if you can bear that in mind to have a little bit of a different
Right.
perspective.
Bonus parent and bonus child.
Yes. When there's a big age difference too, my ex-husband's partner is 20 years younger. um,
Oh,
they have a completely different perspective and they're less of a parent and more that just like an aunt or a good friend, I would say. None of my children wouldn't say this is my dad's or my stepmother. They might say that, but the relationship is so much closer because they're closer in age. Not closer, sorry, than mom. Doesn't replace mom, but they have a different type of relationship. So when I see them with the children, they're chatting and like friends, more like friends, and they get certain references, and that can be hard as the older mom. I could understand that. I'm living that myself. It's sometimes hard, but we have to say, but how great for the children. Yeah,
for the children. Yeah. Yeah.
yes, yeah, totally different relationship. Fantastic
Yeah.
relationship in its own right, but doesn't replace the relationship of the mom or the dad. Yeah, they don't take
Right.
mom is always forever, dad is forever.
Right. Right. I find that most of the couples who I work with in mediation are already very concerned about their children, and that's one of their motivations for
Mhm.
choosing
Yes.
mediation. So, um, for the majority of them, it's not that difficult to shift their focus to, how is this going to impact the children? What's the best way to talk about this? I find that with most of the families who come to mediation, they're already very concerned about how their children are going to do. And it's not that difficult to get them to shift their thinking to how is this impacting the children? What's the best way to approach this? How can we help our child with the transition? Do you find that as well?
Yes, I think when I ask people why they chose mediation, which is the first question I ask them when we start our session, and they'll say most of the time they want to continue their positive co-parent relationship. They don't want to. They want to keep. They'll say, "Well, we want to be friends, or we still are family," whatever their words are. And I often say, "You're parents forever and grandparents forever." I'm a grandparent already, and my ex-husband and I are great grandparents. And that child has a lot of. We're a big unit, and he has a lot of grandmas and a grandpa. So that's all positive. And if I think the self-selection of mediation, people are coming, choosing that process deliberately to do what's best. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. And have you ever had any new partners of your mediation or collaborative clients who have joined the process?
Well, I have one case where the I'm a consulting attorney in mediation, so that they're in mediation, but I'm working for one of the spouses, it's the husband, and his girlfriend is on every phone call. It's like, um, she and I are here on the phone call. She and I wrote this email responding to counsel. He's like, "Is that okay?" So I'm always talking to the two of them, and there's a lot of emotion there in the new partner. It's interesting to hear their
Oh,
perspective.
wow, that's interesting.
Yes, it's sometimes I do get to speak to him alone, and it's a very different feeling than when she's joining the
Is
call.
she an attorney? Like, is there a reason that she's in
I
this?
think, I don't actually know that. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think she feels he's not moving fast enough and she needs to move it forward and get this divorce done because maybe they want to get remarried and she's there
Right.
to help push it along. And it's been quite a long time that they have been separated. It's a very complicated situation. It's a complicated mediation actually. So yeah, she's trying to do her part. But I'm not sure how helpful, I don't
Right.
he
And
doesn't
is
need that, really, he doesn't need that.
is the ex aware that the new girlfriend is
I
so
don't
involved?
I'm not telling him, no, I'm not telling
Well,
him. I'm not it's a confidential, between
Yes, it's confidential. You wouldn't tell, but I'm just wondering, like, she hasn't attended sessions with the ex-wife.
Oh, no, she didn't come. I don't think, I haven't heard many people inviting the new person because it isn't about her. It isn't about the parenting, it's about the money. So there's no reason to invite her. She's just wanting to move things along so that all the spousal support and all that gets worked out. And she has a lot of feelings about the spouse, the wife, continuing to be supported by the husband, even though they're separated. And she said this, so she's got a lot of anger toward that the wife is still taking money from her new partner.
But it's funny that he is, like, deferential to his new girlfriend,
Yeah.
to an extent that he's letting her
Yes.
be involved. That's
Mhm.
fascinating.
Yes. So, but maybe now as I'm hopefully as we go along, like I just got a letter from them with responding, but the next phone call, I'd never know if it's with her or not. He doesn't say she'll be joining. All of a sudden, he's like, "Oh, and she's here. You're on speaker," and then I have to answer her questions and answer his questions. And then in emails, when he writes from both of them, sometimes I'll say, "I always arrange a call just for him. I'm not asking." I think if she were helpful, I might say maybe she could join us, but I'm not looking for that in this instance. I think in a mediation where it's about parenting and asking someone to join so they can hear directly from the other spouse, the mom's perspective, I think that'd be helpful. In this case, I don't think it's very helpful
Yeah.
to participate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So that's a very different scenario than what we were talking about earlier.
Right, yeah. I mean, I had a case that was having a conflict post-divorce, and both parents had remarried, and they were having, um I don't actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think they were in conflict. They wanted to do, like, an amendment to their parenting plan, but they came in with their new spouses, like, both the mother and father were remarried, and
Uh-huh.
they wanted to do this amendment to their agreement, and they came in with their new spouses
Oh,
because the
how
child's
great.
schedule impacted all
That's
4 of them.
that's great.
If the child was at mom's house, mom's husband was
Yeah.
also taking care of the child, and it was very sweet, actually, to have these 4. I mean, this is going back to what we were saying before about bonus parents, but
Yes.
it was really very sweet to have, like, the 4 of them in my office talking about what they wanted in this amendment, and they all had input, but they were in agreement, and it just, like, I'm
That's
getting goosebumps right now thinking about it. It's just like, children don't ask for their parents to divorce,
yeah,
and it changes their lives,
yes,
and so to have them have all these people who do love them and see them coming through, the whole thing, thoughtfully and with love, it's great when we can help people to do it that way.
absolutely. I think mediation gives a forum for that where that you don't have elsewhere. I mean, that was great. That those 2 sets of parents, did a wonderful job coming in and talking to you, and sometimes I have people agree, not with the new partner in the room, but they'll agree, say, "We make the major decisions as the parents, but the step parents or the bonus parents, they get to chime in on everyday things, but they're not going to decide where they go to school. They're not going to decide if they move or relocate or so there's sometimes there can be guidelines around it to help reduce any conflict going forward, like in the plan, if it's a concern, and that often makes the other parent feel much better, relieved to know that they are still the primary decision maker with the child's father or mother or whatever it is.
Right.
Mhm.
But do you find that sometimes, I mean, that must be something that has to be worked out with each child and the step parent, I mean, the claim, like, "Don't tell me what to do. You're not my mother. You're not my real mother. You're not my real father." Um, and that must be something that has to be worked on in every family with every child.
I think the relationship, is, the step or bonus parent and their attitude is critical, which is why, having some people come to your office, um, is great because then you can hear it directly on the impact because there are some step parents who really do push back and they want to be involved to an extent that's beyond what the children want, to your point. And I think that they have to have a conversation to say, you need to step back a bit. In my own family, both of the bonus parents, the stepmoms, step partners, whatever you want to call it, um, they both acknowledge that they're not the parents. They often say it. They say it to the children. They say it between ourselves, and they very much defer to me and my ex-husband. And so that helps. That's a lot of the reason, to your point, Rachel, really, why it's working so well, because they
Yeah,
chosen not to compete and push. And so they don't get that from our children. You're not my real, because they don't step over that line.
they
The
don't
rest
step over the line,
are
right.
of the parent, and they don't
Yeah,
try to be equal to the parent.
yeah. Yeah, that must be an important piece of this. So, I can't even imagine how families that litigate navigate these waters, because litigation really is like ritualized war, and I think they litigation assumes that the parents are enemies, and you're trying to just get as much as you can, uh, at the no matter the cost to the other parent. You're kind of trying to destroy the other person in a certain way, like trying to win,
Right.
and it's just such a must be such a damaging. I don't know how families can even recover from that kind of process.
Yes, I think it's very, very challenging. Like I always say, you can't unsay what you said. Even if you say, "Oh, that was just in a court case," people remember it. And you're talking about, children remembering from years ago how they met the new person, or resenting and new stepmother. That some of these, I love you saying ritualized war. That's exactly how I see it as well. And when those can go on for years, it's years of your child's life living in that level of conflict. I spoke to a former litigator who's now a collaborative attorney recently, and he said, I kind of miss litigation because I could just play to my base instincts. I can just do what I feel like I'm unleashed in that regard, because I can just do whatever it is to get, advocate. It's like an unleashed advocate, whatever he was saying. And now he has to hold himself back. He's got to put the other spouse in mind, and all the things we do in collaborative, where we're thinking about what's best for everyone, what's a fair enough agreement for all, what's best for the children. He was just saying they don't do that at all in litigation. And I've been in cases with litigators, and it was terrible. They could not. Their negotiating with litigator is completely different from what I see. Um, Unless they're a mediation friendly litigator, there are some that can be reasonable and put those base instincts aside. And at least for the moment, at least in my case, uh, because yeah, it is a very different mindset, that win, lose, us, them mindset, which we don't have at all as mediators or collaborators.
Yeah, I guess I in a way I try to think of it as like, I mean, like children can hold the two realities of their two parents in their minds and hearts. Even when the two parents have very different feelings about something, like people sometimes say, how can you be neutral in mediation? And I feel like that the children, can see both sides at the same time. Um, and it makes me feel like there is a right answer. There is something that's fair for the family, for
Mhm.
for both of them. Um, but litigation seems to not be based on that premise, that there's a fair that could work for both of them. It just seems like it's choose one or choose the other. I mean, if you have two children, you don't choose one or the other. You try to take care of both of them. Um, it's really bizarre in the family arena. I just don't think it makes sense.
I think I agree with you. I think in as a mediator myself, I don't usually find it challenging. Sometimes it's very hard. If one person is, I just had two cases this week where they are not putting the children first. That it's so conflict driven, and they're in mediation, but really just to save money. So they said, well, it's cheaper, but that's the only reason. And it's very, very. These cases were very challenging because they're putting the children in the middle. They're asking to hold secrets for the other parent. They're doing all these things that really are so detrimental, and they can't stop themselves. they said that. They
Like,
want
what kinds of secret what do you mean?
like, they'll just say, like, "Don't tell mom that I'm doing whatever they're doing."
Oh, I see.
And then the child says, "Oh, you don't really like mom, like, because you talk disrespectfully to mom," and there's a lot of conversation. I mean, in one family, they're living in the same home, and the dad, when he leaves the house, he goes, "Bye, child," and doesn't say, "Bye, mom." He deliberately will, like, leave a room and say, "Tell your mother I'm going to the store." Tell you like, won't speak directly to the mother, and I was trying to help him to understand how hurtful and harmful that is. And the
Yeah.
child is 14, and the child
Oh,
really is stuck. So
yeah.
it's hard. That can be very heartbreaking as in our work. But
How long have they been living that way?
6 years. The
Oh
mom
my
had an affair
god.
6 years ago, and the dad completely turned off all feeling, actually sees other women. The mom knows that, and, I was trying to help them come up with a parenting plan where they're gonna make 2 homes now and get away from each other because they, it's really the child is seeing mom being disrespected, mom being, treated, poorly, mom being a victim. It's a whole dynamic being set up that's really bad from the child's perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that
Wow. I that's gonna be such a relief to that child to have
yes.
2 homes and to can they afford I mean, in New York City, it's so
No.
hard, but can they afford they can't. That's why they've stayed together in the same
They
home.
want to nest. They want to nest, which they
Mhm.
had mom has nowhere to go. They can't afford to pay rent somewhere else, and mom does dad can go to his dad's, his older dad, his elderly dad, but mom has nowhere. That was the crux of the mediation. We were speaking, where does mom go? How do you afford a place for mom to go? And then before we even get to a nesting schedule and a parenting time schedule. So, I don't know if they'll be back. They may choose, they were in a litigation process and then they came to this process, then they went back to litigation, and so they're toggling, they're trying to find this.
They have attorneys? I mean, they can
They
afford the
had attorneys and
attorneys?
they spent a lot of money, and the mom said, "I can't do that again." They spent $15,000, got nowhere, absolutely nowhere, nothing. I saw they've not addressed one single issue, and she spent all that money. So
Yeah.
that's why they can't afford the apartment.
Right.
Now,
Oh,
yeah,
how terrible.
it is terrible.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing that astonishes me about the litigation process is that sometimes people I mean, I've heard stories many times of people who have spent, $30,000, $40,000, and I say, "What have you resolved?" And they say nothing. Because I think litigation, they tend to not wanna settle one thing at a time. Like in mediation, we usually and in collaborative, we usually take the issues one at a time. We can talk about parenting plan, we can settle a parenting plan. Then at least they have a parenting
Yes,
schedule.
right.
We can talk about child support. We can settle child support. But I find that in litigation, because they're trying to have the maximum advantage, they don't want to agree to one thing piecemeal. They want to have like a whole settlement or nothing. So people can spend tens of thousands of dollars, $100,000 on legal fees, and they have nothing settled at the end of it. And it's astonishing. And I think people don't understand this about the litigation process. It's just a whole different approach to negotiation.
Yes, it is, and I think also some of those, lawyers for their own, their own aggrandizement. They don't wanna end the case. They would like the fees to keep coming in, and it's a shame because other kinds of lawyers like us, um, bear the brunt of that bad reputation, right? People you hear divorce attorney and that people think of that and, War of the Roses kinda stirring up the conflict, keeping the conflict going, not necessarily wanting to do what's best for the family, and, the couple who came to me, the ones who were in litigation, we were talking about, the mom said, "I wanna pay for my own children's college." They have 1 child in college, and then I said, "Oh, yeah, no, the old joke, like, you're putting your children through school versus the attorney's children through school." And
Right.
they said exactly that they answered exactly. And so that's their mindset, but they're only coming back for the money. So now in mediation, you can't just come because it's cheaper, you have to come because it's better, because it's
Yeah.
better parents. That's the shift that dad has not made yet there.
Yeah.
So I'm recommending some books to them to read, and my website has a lot of resources. So even
Yeah.
if they don't come back, they can get a little bit educated on how the conflict hurts the child more than making the two homes. I always say that it's not the two homes as much as how you are together.
Right, right, yeah. Yeah, I have a friend who's, having a litigated divorce, and, um, she she has been in the house, like, really, the house is the main issue. Like, they separated over 10 years ago, and she stayed in the house, and now she wants to continue to stay in the house, and she spent, I don't know, more than 50,000 on her attorney,
Wow.
and she's just recently gotten wind, of the fact that the attorney she thinks both attorneys wanna sell the house because they're worried about getting paid.
Wow.
And it's horrifying, and, she spent, like, $50,000 that she basically is not gonna have for retirement. I mean, that's what it came down to, and she's in her, she's over 60. I mean, she's probably in her, 61 or something. I mean, so retirement isn't that far off,
Right.
and she's basically spent that money, on her attorney, not realizing her attorney doesn't even have her best interests,
Yeah.
in mind, which seems to me unethical as an attorney. You're supposed to be advocating for your client, which means what she wants. I mean, um, but I guess life is not perfect.
No, yeah, it's hard. I think when people have sometimes they don't know their process choices. Like when people call me, I explain, the range of choices. People usually like, I just needed a lawyer. I just, quick. And I think taking a minute to say, but how do you see this playing out? What kind of divorce story do you want to have? How do you want to be in the process? How do you want your children to see you in the process? Things like that. And people go, oh, I didn't even know collaborative existed. I hear that all the time. People are like, I didn't even know that was a choice. Because when you see on TV, it's litigation all the time. Get lawyer up, get your attorney, and so there's a lot of, especially out east, where part of my practice is. Really, the people who can least afford it right away run to the litigation because that's all they're not exposed to. They know a little bit about mediation, maybe, and definitely nothing about collaborative. So, I give talks a lot about these topics to try to educate the public because I think people should understand it's not litigation or nothing. That's not the only way to go, and that's
Right.
not the best way to go for your children.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, your clients are lucky to have you, Catherine. What
Oh,
can I say?
the same for you, Rachel. That's very nice of you to say.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Keep the kids in mind and talking about all your interesting experiences, with blended families and extended families and different kinds of definitions of family, with bonus parents and everything else. And I could talk to you for another hour, but
Same.
I guess we should close.
Uh,
Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you, Rachel.